Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. David Guthrow, Discover Fresh Perspectives, back here today with my guest from all the way from Montreal, Sara Gilbert. Welcome, Sara.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Dave.
So I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about yet, but before we do, maybe you could just let our listeners know a little bit about you and what you do, just so we have a context to listen to your content into.
So today I guide entrepreneurs and leaders on their business strategy and their mindset. But my first life plan was to be a kindergarten teacher. And my second life plan was to be a psychologist. So I figured that's what I'm doing. They're just taller, you know?
I love it. I love it. And I'm sure you see many, many common behaviors between those two groups.
You know what? In the end, we're really all 4 years old. It's true. Like we act and we react like 4 years old. And sometimes we actually would gain a lot in life to go back also to being that lighthearted 4 years old.
Yeah, if we could just live within the capacity of our limbic brain instead of all this cerebral cortex kind of stuff where we get ourselves in trouble.
Yeah. Yes. And and then like I have this fascination for human behavior, language, human dynamics. Why do people act a certain way or not act a certain way? And like I've always had that fascination, which really explains why I do what I do today.
So I find that sometimes I mishear things and it leads me in all kinds of different directions. So when you said our fascination for human behavior, first I heard our vaccination for human behavior. And I was thinking, that would be really interesting. Like, how can we vaccinate ourselves against the wacky part of human behavior? But I distract myself. So, Sara, what are you passionate about today? What should we have a conversation about?
I think one thing that as humans we would gain a lot to learn more is how language influences our behavior.
So say more about that. What do you mean by that?
So one of my fascination is on psycholinguistics. Psycholinguistics is the link between the language and our behavior.
Okay.
So when I'm with a client and we're talking about a business strategy or anything, an action plan, whatever it is, and the response that I get is, I don't know what to do. It's hard. It's complicated. I'm going to try. Like, I know that this person, they're shooting themselves in the foot.
Mhm.
So bringing more awareness of the language that we use, let it be in our inner chatter or when we talk, how that influences our behavior and other people's behavior.
So let me back up for just a moment. So when
Yeah.
you said shooting themselves in the foot, what did you mean by that?
Well, if I say to myself or to somebody else, it's complicated, the brain's going to go, I'm not going to do it. Because the brain's job is not to help us reach our full potential. That's not the job of the brain. The brain's job is to keep us alive. And to do that, it will save all of our energy focused to that. So if I'm thinking about doing something and I'm telling myself that it's complicated, that I don't know what to do, the brain's going to go, you know what, let's save our energy to survival. So let's not do that.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then that's where we procrastinate, we hesitate, and we just don't do what we know. We know what we should do. We know what we have to do, but we don't do it.
So then are there a certain I know that you speak English, obviously, because that's what we're conversing in now. You also speak French, I believe, because I've seen some of your posts. You may speak other languages as well. So, are there any threads or things that cross either within a language or across languages that are fairly generic, or is everything pretty specific to the person, the role, the context, things like that? Like, what are some of the implications and applications of this knowledge?
Well, that's a really good question. It's general because it's human nature. But the way that I like to see it and that I like to explain it is the way that I see it is there's two vortexes. There's an upward vortex and then there's a downward vortex.
Okay, so because this is all audio,
Oh,
I can
sorry.
see
Yes.
what you're doing with your fingers there. But when you say
Yes.
vortex, just so people
Yes.
listening to what you're demonstrating.
So, they're words and expressions and linguistic patterns that are bringing us upwards, and some of them are actually draining us.
Okay.
So it's more of where does the word in which direction is a word draining me?
Okay.
So if I say something's hard that it's in French, English, or Spanish, it's going to have the same impact
Gotcha. Okay.
because it's going to pull my energy downward. So it's universal because human behaviors, no matter the language, we all behave the same way.
So all our
Like
brains
there's
kind of are all trying to minimize unnecessary expenditure of energy.
exactly. So it's all about, survival. The brain's always in survival mode. The brain's always in protection mode. The brain is always looking on, like where could be potentially a threat. So, but the thing is that all this is in our unconscious mind. So we're not aware of it. And the link between the unconscious world and the conscious world is language. It's with language that I can take something that I'm unaware of and bring into awareness. So personally, when I listen to somebody speak, the words that they use, the verbs that they use, how they structure their sentences, it actually tells me everything in terms of their beliefs, their patterns, because that is how we let it out in the visible world, is through language.
So knowing that happens, and I'll probably say things that I've heard but don't actually understand. But quite often we get reverted back into the reptilian brain, sort of the limbic brain, where a lot of that unconsciousness happens.
Yeah.
So how do you use, when you're consulting, using language to get people to sort of pull themselves out of that reactive, I have to keep myself from dying mode, into sort of now how do I want to be? What do we need to do in the cerebral cortex in the front of the brain? How do you use language? So you recognize where someone's at because of the language they use. Now, how do you shift that into something that's going to be more helpful for them?
So I'll use different strategies because my goal in life is always that my clients don't need me.
Mhm.
So I give them the tools. So let's say exactly yesterday I was talking with a client and he's like, but I don't know what to do and it's hard, and I explained that how these words are in the negative energy, and negative energy is 4 times more powerful than positive energy. So it's hard, it's complicated, I don't know what to do. I'm like, we realize that is what keeps us stuck. So first, I like to bring awareness because I want the person to be able to do it themselves after. Then the power of questions.
Mm.
I love your reaction. So when we ask a question, the brain can't do anything else but to find an answer to that question.
Huh.
But the thing is we ask ourselves lousy questions.
Okay.
Why can't I do this? Why can't I figure this out? Why is this so complicated for me? What and we ask ourselves these questions that actually just drain more and more energy. So by asking question that flips the vortex, what if it was simple?
Hmm.
What if you knew what it was? What could be one simple step?
So that sounds like a really simple yet incredibly effective strategy. Just as I'm hearing you say that, I'm thinking about what are the questions that I ask myself, and the importance of curiosity. In fact, a little divergence here. I was thinking today about posting something on Facebook and say, Facebook, where curiosity goes to die, right? Right. Because people don't go to Facebook to be curious, right? They go to have their opinion reinforced, or the way they're thinking of things, or the negativity reinforced, if that's their
Mhm.
orientation, versus possibility.
Validation.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Hmm.
Well, because again, on a brain perspective, we want to belong. We want to be part of a tribe because that's safety. So that's why we're seeking validation. It's not like, again, like the brain's not there to help us reach our full potential. That's not what it's there for. So we always seek people that think like us, or with the people who are like us, we're looking for people who are not like us. And we're always going to find what we're looking for.
Yeah. And yes. And what it doesn't do is deepening or broadening understanding. It puts me deeper into into a channel. Like I haven't found, and so I've seen some colleagues posting things on Facebook that everyone kind of piles in on one side or the other. And I haven't seen any comments yet that say, well, help me understand that, or help me understand where that came from, or what if. It's all very much positional, and you get stuck in that, and your bias deepens. Yes, you're part of a tribe, or whatever term you want to use, but it certainly doesn't expand the possibilities of a larger group of human beings that I could be part of.
True. And I find that we live in a world where we're busy being busy. And when we're busy being busy, I don't have access to that openness.
Mm, mm.
So help me understand, which is a question that I love. Help me understand, we can only access to that question when we have mental space. So, and like if we're looking, everyone's busy being busy, everyone's nervous system is jacked up like unbelievably. So, where can I give myself space? Where can I breathe? Where can I, before giving an answer, wait 4 seconds?
Yes.
That space, and that 4 second is great when I'm in communication with somebody else. And with whom it's also really great with? Ourselves.
Mm, mhm.
Like, why is this thing not working? Why is not, and nothing ever works? 4 second. And in that 4 second, I can recalibrate and say, is that true?
So you said something earlier about, you want your clients to not need you. So they give you, or so you give them tools and techniques, and that one, and changing habits. And that one about just getting people to pause for 4 seconds before saying anything.
Mhm.
That's so simple, but so valuable. Like the payback for that. So are those the kinds of things that you work with your clients to help them understand and embed in their way of being?
Absolutely. So we ask ourselves better questions. We challenge our thinking. We understand. Well, first of all, if you understand that your brain is just there to keep you alive, there's a lot of things that you're going to stop believing. And then we want to challenge these questions. We want to put light on it. We want to start asking ourselves better questions. We want to ask curiosity questions. If I would know, what would I do? So one comment that I'll often get from my clients is, so the other day this and this happened, and then your voice was in my head. And I started asking myself questions. What would Sarah do? Or you know what? Just breathe. Or they'll just say questions or statements, expressions that I use, and they use that in their toolbox. Like, oh, am I just being busy right now? Sometimes it's also changing a word, words that are in a contraction energy to an expansion energy. Problem, opportunity is changing a linguistic. Sometimes there's a word that we attach an emotion to words. So sometimes it's like, what's the emotion that I'm attaching to this word? Maybe that's why I'm procrastinating. That's why I'm hesitating. Sometimes I just need to shift the word. It's like if I think of the word budget, I'd probably rather go for a root canal than do that. You know? But if I change the word and use something else, money mastery, then I'll want to do it.
That's so. What I'm going to be doing after this call, I have some blank business card size piece of paper, and I'm going to write down a few things like wait for 4 seconds. Is there a better question? Vortex up or down? Just like a few little things like that. So when I open my wallet, it's like, oh yeah, as a reminder. And the other thing, I'm not sure where this comes into linguistics or not, Sarah, but the role of ego. So you said sometimes you don't have the capacity to think and reflect and be open and things like that. I think also sometimes you do a quick.
That's a belief, and I will leave it with you,
Okay. Which?
though. That we don't have the time or the capacity.
Oh no. I just thought that was one of the things that you said keeps us from having those
Yeah.
conversations.
Yeah.
Right? So I think another thing is my ego in this situation. So just ask myself, where's my ego with all this? So if someone's asking me a question and I perceive that it's about deepening understanding, let's say
Mhm.
that I have time, I'll answer that. If I think it's about challenging my expertise, then I shut down, an opportunity for a different kind of a conversation. So I just, I like to keep thinking about where is my ego supporting me or getting me in the way in terms of the language that I use and why I choose the questions I ask myself.
Yes, and that's it. It's like, which part of me is keeping me stuck there? Like, what is the perception? What is the meaning that I'm putting on this?
Hmm.
Because we're just putting meaning on words that somebody's telling us. Because between what I say and what you hear, there's the truth. But that truth is blinded by perceptions, is blinded by judgments that we have, by ideas that we have, by beliefs that we have. It's sometimes just asking yourself the questions like, how am I feeling about this? Or why is this triggering me? And not why in a judgment way, why in a curiosity way. Like, I'm curious, what makes me react this way? Why does this person trigger me so much?
I think that requires a person's willingness to be mindful and a recognition there's value in doing that, to stop and ask that. Like the example that came to mind many, many years ago when I first got into this business, I was doing some work with service advisors for some of the major automotive companies. And we were talking about how, when a customer says you're lying, some service advisors just they want to leap across the desk at them. And others would instead stop, pause and ask themselves, so what is this person saying? Maybe they don't believe me because they don't have the information or all those other kinds of things that are not about me as a person. I think it takes a, a, a mature and aware person to stop and take those 4 seconds to
Mhm.
ask themselves that before they respond. Because it's different. I could interpret that in, an upward vortex or a downward vortex, depending upon
Yep.
how I think about the words that were used by that person, how I interpret them, what I put onto them.
Yes, and sometimes it's also just to start, especially if something does something that hurts us.
Mm.
We're always, because we're busy being busy, because our nervous systems are just jacked up. We're in reactive mode all the time. But that 4 seconds is so precious because in that 4 seconds, I can tell myself, reframe and remind myself that hurt people hurt people. And that when somebody's mad, mad is a secondary opinion, emotion. Why is this person sad? Why, what happens there? So when I'm acting with a greater intention because somebody is sad, instead of in reaction because somebody is mad, first I give the best version of myself to this person. Then I nurture the relationship with this person. And this person gets somebody to have that they can model when things like that happen.
There's a phrase that I heard another facilitator use when in meetings, and he said, connection before content. So make that personal connection before getting into what the issue is, pausing to do that. And it doesn't take long. It's not like you have to take an hour to do that. Yeah, exactly. So I know there's some people out there, Sarah, that are going to be saying, okay, is it 4 seconds? Is 3 not enough? Is 5 too much? So I'm presuming that this is a rough guideline. Like, don't be too anal and interpreting 40 seconds and start your watch now.
Well, actually, if you can, actually, you can. But when we actually take the time to take the time,
Mm.
you'll see that 4 seconds is useful. Because when emotions are high, intelligence is low. 4 seconds allows us to recalibrate this. It's 4 seconds that recalibrates my energy. It's 4 seconds that allows me to ask myself a better question. It's 4 seconds to put, the relationship above being right. It's 4 seconds that I'm not going to be in reaction.
So I can see this being very handy, from a business perspective. But maybe let's just talk about how does it work in personal relationships with connections with friends, family, kids, things like that. Because I suspect there's something we can dig into there as well in terms of where the value is.
You have two
Oops.
teenagers. Believe me, the 4 seconds is very useful. You know how many times, even as parents, like we said something came out of our mouth. We didn't say it, it just came out of our mouth, and we're like, that was not my best moment. And as parents, we have a responsibility to take that 4 seconds to act with greater intention. Because when we do that, chances are that's what we're going to teach by modeling. So being in reaction and understanding that when I calm down, I get better relationships. If I'm talking with my sister and we're talking about something and we don't have the same point of view, instead of saying, you're wrong, I can say, I don't share that belief, which is different because the only thing that comes out of our mouth all the times are just beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And beliefs is just a story that I've said so many times that I believe it's true, but it's a belief that for me, it's not a universal truth. So when I understand that whatever is coming out of somebody's mouth is a belief that they have, then my job is actually to filter that. It's like, do I want to believe that? Is that true? Do I want to believe that? What do I want to believe instead? So we slow down the pace, like, and I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix when he gets like all the bullets and like all the time, this time slows down. When we're able, by taking a breath of just slowing down the time, everything changes. Because we see that somebody's mad is actually sad. We see that somebody that does something that hurtful, it's because they're hurting somewhere. We're seeing that everything that we do in life is to be seen, to be heard, to be recognized, to be loved. That's the only way, that's the only thing that we react. So when I listen to not the words that the person is saying, to the message that they're saying behind the words, it changes all of our relationships. And then I can decide, do I want to react to this? Do I want to play victim in this? Do I want to be, do I want to be a leader in this? Which role do I want to play?
And again, I think of when I have experience with someone versus when I don't. I probably use those 4 seconds. I would use those 4 seconds differently. So, for example, it's uh, I have she's not a teenager. Sometimes actually she's 25, but I know that sometimes she will say something, and I wish I was better at this, but I don't stop to think about, is this a unique interaction, or is this oh, there she goes again? And I respond to the pattern rather than to the incident. If someone that I didn't have a previous connection with, I'd probably use those 4 seconds to ask myself different questions. That makes sense?
It totally makes sense. And even sometimes when I'm not when I'm not in the relationship right now, I can ask myself, what's the identity that I'm giving to different people? We stick identity to people. Oh yeah, she's like that. He's like that. The other day my son's older, he's 18, and I said something, and he's like, "Why do you judge?" And I'm like, "I'm not. I was just asking a question." But the identity that he put on me is that everything that comes out of my mouth is a judgment. So that's where between what I'm saying and what you're hearing, there's a filter that comes in there of perception, of identity sticking.
So that's a very interesting example. So you know what to do with your 4 seconds and what your identity is. When you see someone who's put a different identity on you, how do you move through that? Like, how do you adjust to that? And I don't want to use the term fix, but I will. How do you fix that? So because this person is, interpreting something that you said through a different lens,
Mhm.
how do you shift that rather than just saying, well, that's not what I meant?
4 seconds, but we'll go back to 4 seconds.
Take your
Um,
time. Yeah.
yeah, but again, it's in that 4 seconds that I actually, instead of being in my head, I go back into my body, my feeling, my heart. My that I go back there because we live in our head.
Mm.
And when there's a conversation of head to head conversation, it's not even a conversation. We're just exchanging words. So the higher the stake, the slower we need to speak,
Mm.
because that is how we bring a conversation from the head to the heart. So the most important is to first, we want to slow it down. And I actually just stated a fact. I'm like, between what I said and what you hear, I think there's a perception. I didn't say there's a perception. I said, I think there's a perception. So it's a subtle question, but what I did there was play with one emotion that's really important, is doubt.
Mm. Okay.
Because in terms of changing human behavior, there are two really strong emotions that are doubt and hope.
Hmm.
And I call these pivot emotions. So when somebody's in a downward spiral vortex of like, oh, things are not working, they don't need hope. They're not there yet. It's like, oh, it's all going to be fine. And somebody's having a bad day and they're like, oh, it's all going to be fine. It's too far emotionally. The first thing we want to pivot is doubt.
Like maybe it's not that bad sort of thing, or
Could it be that it's not as bad as we think?
okay.
Could it be that between what I said and what you hear, there's perception? With doubt, I'm putting a crack in the wall.
Hmm.
And from there, when the conversation continues, then I can go into hope.
So you don't have to answer this question, but I'm going to ask it. Like, what percentage of time when your kids are thinking about you, do they think that they're glad that you are the mom that you are? Like, do they appreciate what percent of the time that they, oh, mom, but they actually think about their relationship? Because what you're saying sounds pretty cool to me.
Mm.
Cool as opposed to cruel, just to be clear. Cool.
Yep. I, I would say now more than in the past, because at one point I learned that helping somebody who didn't ask is judging them. That made our relationship really hard because I was always in coaching mode.
Hmm.
And my daughter is one who really brought this on to me. At one point, she was like, things were going bad with friends and everything. And she was complaining and there was drama. And I was like, yeah, but what if? Nah, nah, nah. And she's like, Mom, could you just be with me and just say it sucks?
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, yes. So now I'm better at that really sucks. And sometimes if I'm not sure, I'm like, is this the part where I say that this really sucks? And she's like, yes, you're on the side. You say this sucks. I'm like, okay, perfect. This sucks. Because the relationship is more important than being right. So I'm getting better at it. I'm much better. There was a time where it was tough for them to have me as a mom because I was always on. Until a friend of mine said, Sarah, helping people without them not asking, you're judging them. And I'm like, I do not like you anymore. And I took 8 seconds to breathe. And then I moved on. So the conversation I had with my son this week, actually, where I said something and he said, why are you judging? And I talk about perception. What I'm planting there is doubt. Could it be different? Could it be a perception? Could be, and hopefully put that tool in their toolbox.
You reminded me of something that a friend of mine who was an optometrist. He's back in Ontario, but he was also studying Buddhism, and I'm not sure where this thought came from. But he said, David, you have a choice. Do you want to be right, or do you want to have peace? Because it's rare that you get two of them at the same time, and really to pause for those 4 seconds, say, what do I want here? Do I want to be right? I want to have peace. And there's the consequences for whatever decision you make. But it's
For
about making the
everything.
decision consciously. Yeah.
Yes. And that's why everything that comes out of our mouth is a belief to be able to catch it. Like, oh, I can't do that. Is it true? There's a difference between I can't or I decide not to. There's a difference between I can and I won't. So it's a small shift linguistically, but internally it's a huge shift.
So do you notice any difference between the way that introverts hear what you say and embrace it versus extroverts? Like, is it easier
So
or harder for one versus the other?
no, what I have from experience noticed that sometimes the introvert will backlash out loud, while the introvert will backlash internally.
Hmm.
She's wrong. While the extrovert will most likely often say, "You're wrong."
Okay. Okay.
So, and this is where when we slow down and I pay attention to the person in front of me, I can see it in their body language that they're thinking she's wrong or this hurts or, and I can catch it.
Hmm.
So when we slow down the time, we're able to access things that are just there, but they're so subtle that if you're not present, you can't catch it.
Well, and I find with a lot of my clients, so like you talked about, we're always busy. And I certainly see that. And where I think the greatest learning and growth comes from is when you pause to reflect. But reflection is rarely ever built into someone's day. I mean, some people might use Headspace, a meditation app or something like that to slow down. But the thought of reflecting as being counterproductive is really toxic. It's a toxic belief, in my opinion, right?
Yes, because being busy is glorified.
Yeah.
So this is where, and that's why I like language because you don't need to sit for 15 minutes and meditate. Sometimes you just need a half a second to say, what just came out of my mouth? Or what am I thinking about right now?
Hmm.
Is this true? Do I want to believe that? That's like a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the more I do it, the more mindful I become, the more intentional I become, because I think at the end of the day, it's what we all want is live a life with greater intentionality.
So I don't know who's listening to this and where they're coming from. If you were, though, had the opportunity to say, here are 2 or 3 things to think about that you can act upon after you finish listening to this podcast before you're on to the next thing. What are sort of 3 tips or suggestions that might help a person grow if they were interested in doing that?
The first, one of the things that I always give people as a homework, quote unquote, is find out what the expressions that you use. And if you don't know them, ask the people around you, they know.
So what do you mean by that? Like, what would an example be?
So some people, their verbal reactions will be everything things as something happens, they'll go, it's hard, it's
Oh,
complicated. Oh, it's hard, it's complicated. So don't ask where we're stuck. We're keeping ourselves stuck. So understanding what are my expressions, because these are repetitions of beliefs that I have. So what are the words and the expression that I use? And what
okay.
new word and expressions do I want to start using?
Okay.
That's such a just that shift changes so much because it moves us from reaction, autopilot, to greater intentionality. Second is find anchors.
Sorry. Oh, anchors. Okay.
Anchors. So I have a theme for my life. I have a theme, a word for every year.
Hmm.
These are anchors that I have. So 2 years ago, I spent 6 months in Costa Rica with my. Now, at one point, we went down this slide that's made in the rock, which really does not look pleasant. She wants to do it, but she's afraid. And I'm like, dang, that means I need to go because if I go, then she'll go. She wants to go, but she's scared. And I'm the adult. So technically, I'm supposed to. And I'm like, and I'm really a wussum, right? And I'm at the top of this, and I'm like, you know what, girl? The theme for your life is adventure.
Hmm.
Oh, so have anchor points. Let it be a theme for your life or a word of the year.
Great. Okay. And now you don't have to come up with a third, but these first two are so good. I'm willing to pause for 4 seconds and wait for another one.
And the third one is pause for 4 seconds.
Oh,
And make that a muscle. Not just when we speak to others, when we speak to ourselves. When my inner chatter just goes wow, like wow, like it takes me 3 seconds between a text and I'm gonna end up homeless living under the bridge. It's like 4 seconds. It changes the way we think, it changes the way we act, it changes the relationships that we have, hence the impact that we're gonna leave.
so for those folks who are listening and driving, don't stop to write this down, but I'll repeat these so they get in there. So even maybe just for the balance of this day. So be aware of what the expressions are that you use and what are some more positive or appropriate ones or ones that'll work better for you. So be aware of what they are and then make new choices. Second is to find some anchors that help you make those moment decisions. Am I being consistent with this anchor, whether it's an anchor for a day, a month, a year, a lifetime? And the third is pause for 4 seconds. So, Sarah, thank you so much for being my guest today. I mean, there's some I think lots of potential for people to directly apply what we've chatted about today. So yeah, so it's been great to spend a little bit more time with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to chat together.
So this has been once again David Guthrow. Discover fresh perspectives and come on back next week and let's get some different perspectives on something totally different. Subscribe now because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.